Welcome everybody to the Your Lender Buddy podcast. I'm Jordan, your host, and today special guest Hannah Fouts with us on the podcast with SMI Real Estate. Super excited, and honestly, the reason I wanted to have her as our first guest here on the show, as you'll find out, just incredible story of where she's come, been in real estate over 8 years now, proven incredible amounts of success, and even really pioneering the residential real estate side of SMI, doing some incredible things there. And one of the most creative minds as far as marketing and sales, which right now is incredibly important in a very changing market. But also the one things that I like is she makes it seem easy, but hearing a bit more of her story, I hope you'll see that it definitely is not easy, but she pushes through, is able to make it work there with some incredible just dedication to family and the reason she does what she does. So wanted to share a bit of her with you here in the time I've gotten to know her. Just again, incredibly impressed with what she's doing, where she's come, and where she's continuing to go. So with that, Hannah Fouts, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming here today.
Well, thanks so much for that amazing introduction and for having me as your first podcast guest.
Absolutely. So starting off, just hearing a little bit about you, would love for you to tell us a story about how you got into real estate and a little bit about what your first couple of years were like. I mean, did you hit your stride for success right away and just crush it with $20 million in closings your first year? What was the industry you were coming out of and getting into? And yeah, what was your startup period like the first few years?
Yeah, so one of the reasons I got into real estate is at the time, it was 8 years ago, I had two young kids, was struggling with working full time and wanting to be there for my kids. And so I Googled what's the best way for a stay-at-home mom to make money. And real estate was one of those things that came up, and I knew I was going to have to work full time, but I was able to do that with my kids. A little backstory on that, though, is I bought my first house when I was 21 years old. I had no money down. So I did a USDA loan, bought out in Malala, and I saw how much wealth I built within 4 or 5 years by just buying a home. So it was really important to me to help other first-time homebuyers and other people build wealth through real estate. So it felt like it was something that I wanted to share with other people. Because when I bought my first home, like I said, I had no money for closing costs, probably had $1,000 in my bank account. To grow it in 4 or 5 years, being able to sell it for $320,000 when I bought it for $180 by just living there and making a payment, it was life-changing money at that time for me. So it kind of fit both of those things, staying at home with my kids, building my business around my kids, and then also doing something I was extremely passionate about, is helping build wealth through families and real estate.
So talking about that, building your business around your kids and having your schedule around your kids. So I think you were saying that you don't have like babysitters or daycare or anything. So how do you manage that? Because a lot of people would look at that and say, well, I guess I can't get into real estate then because I've got kids and nothing to do.
Yeah. Well, one of my strategies from the beginning was to build my ideal clientele around where I am in my life right now. So I work with a lot of families that have young children like myself. So I have 3 kids, 12, 9, and then 14 months old. So being around people who are in the same lifestyle as me, they don't find it weird that I bring my kids to showings. They have their kids running around with my kids. I'm working with people that I meet at cheerleading or volunteering at school, or the people that I'm actively around when I'm around my kids. So raising my kids and being with my kids was my number one priority. So I'm not going to lie, it is a lot sometimes. I do feel like I work 24/7. And I also have an amazing support system. Jordan Sparks, my boyfriend, who is also a realtor, has a very flexible schedule. So when I have a listing appointment or something like that, he is able to take the kids. And it is easier when they get into school. But yeah, I just have a home office that I'm sitting in right now. And I just work with a 14-month by my side.
Yeah.
I do have my mom too, if I ever need something. My mom's happy to come over for a couple of hours to help me out. But yeah, I just base my business around my kids. So a lot of the marketing I do is marketing towards families with kids. So my kids could come and enjoy my client events and those type of things, so it doesn't seem weird.
Was that something when you were starting off with having your kids that you might automatically fully embraced? Was that something that caused any embarrassment, or was it a case of like, hey, it is what it is? I see a few people that think, oh, taking your kids, having a dog running behind you in the background on the webcam, whatever it is, there's some difficulty in overcoming the what are people going to think of me. I'm curious
Yeah.
how you approached that when you were getting started with your kids.
So funny that you mentioned that. I did have somebody when I started real estate. Um, he made a comment. He wasn't a buyer. He was an owner of a company that I was working for. Made a comment saying it's very unprofessional for people to bring their kids. And I kind of just went to it saying like, it depends on who your client is. Yes, I'm probably not going to bring my 2 or 3 kids to a multi-million-dollar listing on somebody that I don't know. But my friend from church or my friend from school, they know that I have kids and they enjoy that part of me. So I never thought it was like a hindrance to my career. I actually think it helps because people realize, oh, she's a real person. She has something outside of just real estate. She sells a lot of real estate, but she's also a mom first. And it just makes me more personal, I think. And
Yeah.
some people want a different type of agent, and there's other agents out there, but my clientele, it doesn't seem to affect it at all.
I love that because it's embracing who you are and being authentic to who you are and recognizing you don't have to be all things to all people.
Exactly.
So how does that work when you are living life? You said you're going, school and to cheer practice and church. How do you navigate that cross between not being too forward in selling, but do you do specific things to make sure people know that you're in real estate and help? So where does your business come in, where a lot of it is this cross between business and personal spheres?
Yeah. So I talk about real estate a lot just because that's what I do 24/7.
Mhm.
So it kind of just naturally comes up. One of the first questions people usually ask you, oh, what do you do for work? And so then I talk like, hey, I help people get into homes or, sell their homes. And we kind of just have conversations and it comes very naturally. I am not ever going to try to be a salesy person. I'm just going to try to be in front of them when they're ready to buy or sell a home. My whole business is based off relationships and trust. So when somebody trusts me and they know that that I want to do what's best for them, then they're going to continue to come back to me for all their real estate needs. So sometimes it's, takes 5 or 6 years and then they need a real estate agent, but I've always been there, been their friend, been consistent with them. So I just let it come naturally. I don't try to like bring up the sales side of things, just
Yeah.
conversations. Yeah.
Well, definitely seems like it's working because
Yeah.
one of the things I alluded to is the amount of business you've been able to do. You've consistently been closing at least 30 to 40 deals a year, consistently
Yeah.
for several years now. Best month sounds like was either 10 or over 10 transactions in a month, which I mean, a lot of agents are happy to do that in an entire year, and you're
Yeah.
doing that in a month. So, like I said, somebody might see you and man, she makes it look easy. So looking at some of the background behind it, you're saying, it's built around relationships, but you do a lot of legwork behind the scenes to make that happen. So I'm curious if you can talk through any systems you've ended up putting in place to make sure that you have the time, make sure you are top of mind in those relationships. Is that a team? Is that other agents you have with you, or that systems that you have for just reminders? Like, what does that look behind the scenes to help you sustain all of this?
Yeah. So I do have an assistant who works with me 30 to 40 hours a week to kind of help me with the back end stuff. My biggest thing that I work on is probably just consistently reaching out to my clients once a month. So I would say like 80 to 90% of my business is past client and referral basis. So they're referring their friends and their families and their coworkers to me. And how I do that is I try not to ever be salesy. Like, who do you know? Who do you know? It's not a call just to ask, like, who can you refer me to? It's more building the rapport and the relationship. So, handwritten cards, client parties, giving something of value, keeping people updated on the market. I do little client gifts a couple times a year, just drop it off just to let them know how much I appreciate them. And so it's really just continuing to build the relationship even after I close them on a home. So I think that's what I've done, and I've consistently done it. So I would say for the last 3 years, I've been pretty consistent at keeping in touch with my clients every month, I would say, in a different capacity. Before then, I didn't really have systems. I was kind of drowning, like, what am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to get this repeat business? But consistently, since I've been doing that, my business has grown every single year.
And I love it's one where you're not just focusing on the new leads, on prospecting, but you said it's focusing on your clients you've already closed with.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people start to drop off and they say, oh, they're closed, they know me. But looking at statistics, there's a very, very better than average chance that after a year, most people don't even remember the name of their real estate agent.
Yeah.
So
There's like
you,
an NAR stat that says 80% of agents don't but continue that relationship once they close a transaction, which is mind-boggling to me because if I didn't do that, I probably would have closed a quarter of the transactions in
wow.
a year. Yeah.
So how long into your career did you start recognizing and implementing some of these systems? I'm curious if you can talk through maybe things that you've tried that didn't work out, how you
Yeah.
kind of settled on what you are doing now, and if there are any other ideas or ways do you want to do even more? Is it a certain number of touches you're focusing on? Does the content really matter more than the number of touches or the format? Like talking through how did you come to what you're doing now and go through what works versus what doesn't?
Yeah. So the first year I was in real estate, I did a program called the Brian Buffini program, who
Mhm.
is an amazing real estate agent. He is based in California, now runs a whole coaching company. So I took his class within the first 6 months of starting real estate, and I didn't follow it to a T, but I did take bits and pieces of it and continued to do like the pop buys and reach out to my past clients from the first year of real estate. Um, Once I was able to afford an assistant, I was able to scale more because I'm able to close the deals and have her be able to do a lot of the back end stuff that I didn't have time for. So I started the first year, but really implemented almost all of his touches in the last 3 years. Um, so that has been probably the reason I've been the most successful is because it's been consistent. I've consistently been reaching out to my past clients. Yes, there was a month or two that they didn't get anything from me, they didn't hear from me, but I've always been top of mind. So when they are ready to sell, I'm the one they think of, even if they didn't reach out to me the last year on all my touches. Some of the things that I've tried in the past, I've done like paid for online leads. For me, that was not something that I was very successful at. Yes, I did close a couple Zillow leads here and there, but you were having to work so much harder to convert that lead because they didn't know me. They weren't loyal to me. They would just go call the listing agent and start working with them. So that was something I tried for a year and a half that works for some people. It just didn't work as well for me because I really wanted to build that relationship. And there was a bunch of walls that were built up because they just called some random person on Zillow.
So it sounds like it's not so much you reaching out and trying to convert somebody or trying to close somebody, but it's really being top of mind, making sure people know what you do, one, but then just
Mhm.
staying top of mind so that when the time is right, you're there. And like you said,
Absolutely.
I love the way you put it. There's maybe, 1, 2, or 3 months where somebody doesn't hear from you. I almost had to laugh on that one because for most people, they don't hear from their agent or their lender again ever, let
Yeah.
alone for 2 or 3 months. So I'm curious, are you trying to get that gap smaller? And how do you see yourself scaling as your business continues to grow like it has been?
Yeah.
Is this something that you're having more of your team do? Are you trying to, yeah, how does your business change and grow as you do?
Yeah. So I would say for the last 2 years, it's been almost consistently monthly that they've heard from me in some aspect. I do MailChimp or mailers, like I said, handwritten cards, pop buys, client gifts, invites, a call, a text. Those are just a couple of the things that I do. So I try to reach them once a month in some capacity. And again, it's not asking for business. It's just, hey, I'm here if you need anything type of thing. Scaling wise, the assistant really helped. And my next hire is probably going to be a showing assistant. So somebody who is able just to go show houses for me. So I'm able to stay at home with my kids or just find some more business. So that would be really my next step. Would be a showing assistant. Scaling wise, I would love to grow my business, but sometimes, having that balance of work and kids with having a 14-month-old, I'm pretty content of where I'm at right now in my business. And growing a big team is probably something I'll do in the next 4 or 5 years when she's in full-time school.
So with that, I touching on what you were just saying there is recognizing that more success isn't always the answer. More
Mhm.
money and more of whatever it is, which is something we're often told in the industry or we just hear is that success culture. what is it that you look at that is the most important? And are the way you think about it is, hey, once I'm at a certain number of transactions or certain income, then I stop? Is it, hey, relationships and family are the most important? What are the things that you look at to determine when your business and your life are in a healthy place versus knowing that something might need to change?
Yeah, great question. So right now it's relationships with my past client and relationships with Jordan and relationships with my kids. That's kind of how I measure success. So when referrals come to me from past clients or lenders or other agents, like that is a relationship to me. So I usually take on those clients. If I get some random Zillow lead or Google lead or something like that, and I feel like I don't have the capacity to give them 100%, at that point, I will send them to somebody who I have on my team. On my team right now, I kind of have, I just mentor 3 or 4 agents that work at SMI that are new agents. So I help them through the buying and selling process. They have somebody to bounce stuff off of, and so I would hand it to one of them. So I don't really do it based like on a transaction volume or money make. It was more like how much can I handle at that moment.
Love that.
Yeah.
And as you've been growing, one of the things that you have done very well on is, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, you've maintained your lifestyle so that it's not massively increasing your expenses as your income goes up. So you're able to
Mhm.
adapt, you're able to maintain that flexibility. So especially now as we're starting to see the market change, and last year, 2022, a lot
Mhm.
fewer property transactions, a
Yeah.
lot fewer listings now. What, if you want to speak to any of your experience or what you'd recommend for newer agents as far as maintaining personal expenses and lifestyle as your income can go up pretty significantly in this industry? Is there a way that
Yeah.
you think about managing that?
Yeah. So I again, that's one of the reasons I don't pay for leads, because you can't really guarantee that you're going to get that back. Um, I spend the majority of my money marketing towards my past clients. I mean, that's kind of the best bang for your buck, in my opinion. But whatever you choose to do, I think the one thing to keep in mind is just do it consistently. You're not going to see a payoff in 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, maybe even a year. But if you're consistently doing whatever you choose to do, you will have a payoff. Um, so I just wouldn't, throw away money on, yeah, on certain things like leads or people promising you the world. Coaching is amazing if you're actually going to commit to doing it. You know what I mean? Like I pay for a coach now and it's been worth it because she has been able to help me create systems and build what I have now, and being able to leverage my time and my money. So, but starting out, I didn't have the money to spend $2,000 on a coach. And it's one of those things that I wouldn't take on anything that I'm not 100% committed to at that point. Does that
What
answer
is,
the question?
yep, that's perfect. Exactly. And I think it goes, the personal and the professional side there with expenses are, if you're taking your first commission check and you're going to buy a Mercedes, or,
Yes.
you're spending it on things that aren't going to return into your business, because you even
Yeah.
touched on some of the things that do return, maybe even those aren't necessarily worth it because you're told the return is going to be, you're going to triple your business overnight through coaching, or you're going to triple your
Yeah.
business overnight through this lead sourcer program. And I'm sure somebody once probably did,
Yeah.
but to your point, because there was a commitment, because there was a consistency, it sounds
Yeah.
like that's more important than whatever the new fancy shiny tool is.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a new agent, I would definitely, and I did, live underneath my means. So I don't take on a bunch of debt. I have a house payment that I feel extremely comfortable with, that I could go get another 9 to 5 job and pay. My car payment is very doable. You know what I mean? Like I don't take on a ton of debt. I don't have credit card debt because the market is up and down, like we saw last year. I think every agent probably made less money last year than they did the year before. And that wasn't because they weren't good agents, there was just less business going around. So saving money for taxes is another really important one. People get that commission check and want to spend it on everything. And then at the end of the year, you have a lot of taxes you have to pay. So just be conscious of that, save. Try to have a 6 month cushion in your bank account. So if you don't get paid for 6 months, you still make your mortgage.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the last thing we want is real estate agents foreclosing on their houses. That would be
Yeah.
not a great one on the resume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as far as struggles go, I mean, been in the industry for 8 years now. It's had some phenomenal years, had some really good times. What are some of the times where, if you ever had those moments where, whether it was a particular transaction or just a rough year in general, where you thought, man, I don't know if this is for me, or since you
Yeah.
started has ever been, love real estate, never thinking about anything else. What are, if you've gone through some of those times where it really made you question what you're doing, I wonder if you want to share any of those situations or stories and what your thought process was on why you stayed through those
Yeah,
times.
absolutely. I mean, to be honest, it sometimes is a monthly thing. Like, oh, this is a great month, and man, this is hard. I struggled at the beginning with dealing with buyers and sellers' emotions, kind of going through the roller coaster with them. On the back end, they always thought that I was even, but going through the ebbs and flows of transactions. At the beginning of my career, a house closing was a lot more money to me at this point. Now I know that sometimes stuff doesn't happen and that's okay. But at the beginning of my career, those checks meant a lot more to pay my bills. So dealing with the emotions of clients was a hard thing for me to adjust with. So that was a struggle for me. Working, I still struggle with setting boundaries with my clients. I tend to work until 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I wake up to texts at 6 and 7 in the morning, and I'm constantly responding to them. So, kind of getting burnt out at some points is something that I've had to work through or know how to put my phone away. So that's a struggle that I'm currently working with right now, is having a little bit more of that work-life balance where I'm not working 24/7.
Hmm.
Another aspect I've struggled with is finding reliable help, like with assistants and transaction coordinators, contractors, having those other people that are supposed to help you with the transaction. That's been a struggle, finding consistent help, people who want to work and understand the real estate grind, because it is a grind. It is not for everybody. So I think those have been probably my three biggest struggles in the last 8 years.
So in those times where you get, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, yeah. The reason I continued to stay with it is I just looked at the potential, all the things that I still love about the job. I absolutely love helping people get into homes. Like, that is by far my favorite thing, being able to hand those first time home buyers the keys. Like, it still makes me smile to today. Like, that's the reason I do this job. Helping people build wealth. That's why I do this job. The flexibility and the sky is the limit on income is another reason I continue to do this job. I'm like, okay, well, do I want to go work a 9 to 5 and only make $60,000 a year? No, I don't. So I just work through the hard things. And I would say I have way more up days than I do bad days in this career. And having people like amazing lenders like you, inspectors, people like that just make your job easier once you find your kind of core group where you can rely on them because they're doing their job on the side. So
Yeah. So on the note with the assistants, that was an area I wanted to touch on as well,
yeah.
is when did you hire your first assistant? And when you were doing that, what were the things you were thinking through what they wanted to do? Did you have a very clear job description? Were you hiring them, hoping they would, obviously we don't think these things at the time, but just hoping they'd magically solve all your problems without a game plan? How did you go into knowing that you wanted to hire somebody? And then what did that first process look like? And then through that as well, what did you learn? What did you
Yeah.
implement the next time around? And how many times did you end up having to hire somebody to get to where you are now?
Yeah. I think I've gone through 4 assistants. And the first time I went into it, I was very naive to the whole fact. You're a boss at that point, and being able to communicate clearly your needs and your expectations, timelines, coaching, that was something that I was not mentally ready for, I would say about 4 years ago. So I've done a lot of growing, a lot of learning in the last 4 years. So my current assistant, her name's Kelly. She's amazing. She actually was my second assistant. And then we didn't have a falling out. She just had, her kids, and she was busy with that, and it was just not the right timing. And then she has been now reworking with me for a couple months in Arkansas. So she's virtually working for me, but we've come to a good agreement that it's working out really good for both of us. So that's been really hard. Is I grew as a person the most by hiring people to work for me and realizing where my flaws were, and relinquishing control. That was really hard.
So as far as the specific task then and growing as a boss, did you go into it with a specific idea of what you wanted your assistant to do, or how did that kind of evolve to where it is today?
Yeah, so I had a good idea of I wanted somebody in the back end. I don't really like sitting by my computer. I don't really like doing that type of stuff. So I wanted somebody to really take on that part of it, but I always wanted like the creative control. So being able to have them do all the back end stuff while I am going to showings and meeting people and building those relationships, that's what my ideal assistant was. But it took a little bit longer to be able to articulate exactly what I needed and wanted in my marketing strategies. So now I was able to like really get a defined description of what the job was going to entail. And I do 3 Zoom calls with her every single week. And we sit down at Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 in the morning for about an hour and kind of discuss, hey, what marketing are we doing this week? What is our touch for next month? And then she can send me a draft and I could correct it or say, hey, this is perfect. This is what I would change a little bit. But now we're getting through the flow of things. She's really understanding how I word things, how I want things, and we're not having to critique it as much. And she's doing an amazing job with it.
Looking back on your career, on the things that you've tried, some of them worked out really well, some of them not so much. What are the things you look back on and think, ooh, man, yeah, I wouldn't recommend somebody else try that one, that just didn't work out so well?
Yeah, that's good. What I wouldn't recommend. I guess the biggest thing would be like trying something and only trying it for like 2 to 3 months. So I can't look back at something that I've consistently done that I haven't made money on. It's more consistency. Like, okay, I started a farm and I farmed for like 2 months way back in the day, or I did 1 or 2 postcards and I didn't see a profit, so I stopped. So I think that would be my biggest takeaway, is because I think there's so many different agents in this marketplace that are so successful and everybody does something different. So it would be, if you're going to start something, do it good and consistently do it. If that's, calling for sale by owners, calling expired, doing farm, only doing open house, door knocking, marketing to past clients, marketing to friends, volunteer work, all of those are ways to generate business. But if you're only doing it once a month, you're not going to be successful at it.
Oh, so good.
That's what I would say, because I can't think of one thing that I've consistently done that hasn't been worth it.
That's the piece I just want to reemphasize right there, is hearing you correctly. You've never done anything that, if you've done it consistently, did not make you money.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. If you're listening to this, you need to listen to that. Let that one sink in. Consistency matters more than whatever it is that you are doing on it. Because Hannah, you mentioned all those things, and Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, those are all things that you've done, every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't do all of them consistently. So I can't say that door knocking is something that I've made a lot of money on, because I haven't consistently done it enough to make money on it. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good right there for everybody. Don't jump around trying one thing for 3 months, because you can have all the incredible solutions, but if you're doing them short term, you're going to shoot yourself on the foot, because they're not going to pay off in time. And it's not because you're doing it wrong. And it's not because the thing is wrong. It's because you're not consistent and continuing to do that. Wow. That's huge. So looking into, as you mentioned, you're mentoring, several real estate agents now. They're looking to you for advice. With somebody getting into the industry, or maybe they've just gotten in the last couple of years when times are really good, things are starting to shift. What's the advice that you look at giving to them for either, let's say, somebody considering getting in real estate, what they should consider, and for those who are in it, what are the things that they should be focusing on now? Is it dependent on their personality as far as where they focus? Should everybody be doing the same things? I'm wondering what your mentorship, what your advice looks like to people in those situations now.
Yeah. So one thing I would encourage people to do right when somebody gets into real estate, always have them do is create a database, create a list of everybody that you know. And a great way to do that is it's called 10 by 10. You have 10 different areas in your life and you create 10 people per area. So is that the dog park, church, volunteer work, school, family, friends, all those. So you create 10 and there's 100 people that you can start with. And that is a great way to start your database. And those are the people that you're going to talk to first about real estate because they already know and trust you. So those are probably going to be where you get your leads the first couple months. It's going to be somebody that you currently know. So starting your database and find what works for you. Try a little bit of the door knocking, the open houses, the cold call, the for sale by owners. There are so many different ways to get leads, but everybody has different personalities, and what's good for one person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good for the other person. So find what gets you excited. Find what will get you up in the morning. Be like, I'm excited to call for sale by owners today and get yelled at. Some people love that. Me, not so much. You know what I mean? So that's a couple of things that I would say is start out with that. Social media is another huge thing that a lot of people use and utilize. And it's consistently posting stuff about real estate. Don't be that, cheesy salesperson, but also it's top of mind. If I think I have 3,800 friends on Facebook. I know all of them don't see my posts consistently, but a couple thousand do. And so it's just another way to post and show that you're in real estate. Do videos and tell people about market updates. Again, those are people that know that and that trust you that will come to you and ask you questions about real estate. So I think that's kind of where I would tell people to start off is just your sphere. And open houses. I would say 4 to 6 open houses a month right when I started real estate. I would do them every single weekend, sometimes 2 in a day to pick up clients because those are going to be hot buyers that are going to probably be buying in the next 3 to 6 months. So if you want a paycheck, do open houses. Best way to get listings is door knock your open houses. The people around the neighborhood, if you're doing an open house on Saturday, my suggestion would be going and door knocking Thursday night and inviting them to the open house because they most likely know somebody who's going to sell in that area or want to move in that area. So you're just kind of introducing yourself as the realtor in that area. So if you're trying to focus on listings, do a lot of door knocking. If you want to focus on buyers, do open houses.
Okay, anybody that's listening right now, if you have not been taking notes, please go back and write down some of this stuff, okay? Because it's these little tweaks here, these little things that are so important where, like you said, okay, open houses is one, but how do you leverage that even more, right? Is going around door knocking the night before, inviting people over to it, those little things which make a huge difference. And then same social media, having that sphere, posting, because that doesn't cost a thing. And now you're marketing to relationships. Now you're marketing to people who already know you, staying top of mind and not having to be that cheesy salesperson. Because you're right. If 1,000 people see you, well, that's free. You didn't pay for it, but they already know you on it. So
yeah,
gosh, this stuff, guys, don't let this slip by. This stuff is so good. Implement it consistently, as she's saying here. This is massive. And so going into final couple pieces of advice here to pick your brain on is when somebody is looking at a particular company or a principal broker going solo versus going team, what are the considerations you think people should have as far as the company they're working with? And I'm guessing that's something that's obviously changed for you over your career. So what are the things that you just think about when you're considering a company that you would pass along to other people? How should they think about where they're at versus potentially switching companies right now?
Yeah, that question I think is really dependent on where that person is in their career. Because me as a new agent, and where I am now, I would be looking for 2 different things in a brokerage. As a new agent, finding somebody who's going to be able to mentor you through a transaction and also help you find clients. You could go into a mentorship program and they'll be amazing at helping you from start to finish once you get a client. But what you'll realize is the hardest thing about real estate is finding a client. So if you're going to find a mentor who's going to be able to like do cold calls with you, like I meet with my mentees Monday through Thursday from 12 to 1 on Zoom, and we just make calls together. And, everybody can't show up every day, but at least that's an extra hour a day that you're, calling and texting and working on marketing. So, that is going to help, create consistency of calling leads and trying to get clients. So as a brand new agent, I would look for a mentor. I would look for a place that has really good training on sales contracts and how to even talk to clients, because you're starting where you don't really know anything. So where you can consistently get classes is another important thing. As an established agent, the classes are important, but they're not as important because you kind of know the basics. So you're more taking your classes from like title and escrow and lending and that type of stuff. So now when I went over to SMI, I went over there because there wasn't a residential side of things. And I looked at it as an opportunity to be able to get referrals from commercial agents that don't want to work residential. So I went over there because of that, and because Jordan Sparks works over there and he is a multifamily broker. And for us to be able to kind of team up and be able to help with everybody's real estate needs. Him do multifamily and commercial, and me do residential. So that's one of the reasons I chose SMI. Obviously, splits are important as well. If you're not utilizing everything that the brokerage has to offer and you're kind of wanting to do it on yourself, you're probably going to look for a lower split compared to a newer agent. I would pay a higher split if I was able to get mentored more and get more things paid for and helped, like your CRM, marketing, all that kind of stuff. It's worth the penny if you're going to actually utilize it.
Sounds like the key is knowing what you're paying for and
Exactly.
knowing what you're looking for, not just going because it sounds the best, but it's, hey, here's what I need and why I'm willing to pay for it. But at other times when it's no longer relevant, recognizing if you're not using what you're paying for, might be time to look for something else.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, your clients are going to work with you regardless of what company you work for. That's my honest opinion. There's so many amazing companies out there that everybody needs or wants something different in what their brokerage offers. So really, brokerages could offer you the world, but unless you use it, it doesn't really matter. So at the end of the day, real estate is 100% about what you put into it, because no company, no mentor, nobody's going to be able to make it for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. And I see agents all the time changing brokerages every 6 months to a year, thinking it's going to be different, and it ends up the same every time.
So final question for you here.
Yeah.
What are the things, is leading into that last piece there, it's you have to take responsibility for your own success.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to do it for you. There are people that are going to help along the way. What are the things that you've done to develop within yourself? Are there books, are there podcasts, are there certain trainings or coaches? What are the things you've done to level up your game along the way of your career?
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of my career, I feel like the reason I was able to be extremely successful starting off, which to me at that point, I think I closed 8 deals my first year, which I was so pumped about. But I was a single mom. I had nobody to kind of help pay the bills. So I had a fire under my butt. What I've noticed with a lot of agents, when they have another job and they're doing this part-time, they're not successful because they're not putting in the time and they have a cushion in the back. Sometimes you have to jump in full force to be successful because this isn't a part-time job. So I think that was one of the things that really helped me is I quit my job as a waitress after I closed my second deal, and I just jumped in full time. So some people think that's crazy, but it also worked. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. What was the question again? I answered a bit.
No, that's great. Go along those lines. It's what did you do as you are developing yourself and leveling up your skill set, your knowledge, as you're, like you said, learning a new skill set as a boss when you're hiring? So are there certain books, what are the things you've done to take responsibility for your own success along the way?
Yeah. Jordan and I watch YouTube videos and podcasts about real estate all of the time. I mean, we live and breathe it. It's when it comes to investing in real estate, because we both invest in real estate as well as sell real estate. So podcasts, books, YouTube, all of those things. Tom Ferry, I listen to his podcast every day. Bigger Pockets is a really good one. The Keller Williams, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent is another really good real estate book to kind of help grow a team. How to Win Friends and How to Win Friends and Influence People is another one that I read when I started real estate. And then creating a schedule, I think, is really important. Like, I'm not the best at time blocking, but I do have time blocking on my schedule. So like, I'm going to be marketing at this time. I'm going to be making my calls at this time. And I schedule those as a priority. And I think that has really helped me excel in my business, is making those a priority and letting everything else go around that. I also hired a coach about a year ago. Her name's Amy Donaldson, and she's really helped me figure out my why and figure out what I really want in this business, and help structure my business around what I like doing. And so she's been a huge help to that.
And that kind of goes to what you're saying earlier with newer agents, is try things, find out what you like, because then it's going to be more consistent. You're going to have that passion behind it, as opposed to doing something that you hate doing.
Yeah.
Just going to get burnt out on that one.
Yeah. And I like, one of my core values in my business is building relationships with people. So when I build relationships, it really fulfills me. And that's in so many different aspects, not just selling or helping them buy a home, but it's just actually genuinely building that relationship and caring about the outcome for them, caring about their situation, caring about them as a person. So then I wake up every morning like excited to do my job, because I'm bringing something to the table and helping them out, and building that relationship, instead of like waking up and be like, oh my gosh, I have to make 50 cold calls today, because I honestly wouldn't do that. It would just feel against everything that I enjoy doing. So I probably would push it off the majority of days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been incredible, and just congratulations again on your success where you've come on this one. And I just so much appreciate our friendship and the ability to get to know you better over these years. So thank you for what you have done, what you're doing in real estate. As I always say at the end of my podcast, it's let's elevate real estate together. And I really feel like you have been doing that. You're elevating the level of real estate for our community. So thank you for that and sharing your time here. And so for everybody else here, again, it's Hannah Fouts with SMI Real Estate. If you don't know her already, take a chance to reach out just to get to know her. Incredible person. And if you see her on the next transaction, make sure you reach out and give her a shout out for being on the podcast today. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen and watch. If you found this helpful, please pass it along to somebody else, especially right now. Might be the difference in helping them get that little nugget they need to move forward. So until next time, let's continue to elevate real estate together. Take care.